Well, as the theme of Unit 2 is talking about your daily routine and your weekly routine, and as you've already learned the daily routine verbs, despertarse, levantarse, etc., the next element we really need to acquire is the ability to express time so that we can indicate when such and such an activity takes place in the course of our day. And so that's what the purpose of this lesson is 2.15, is to first teach you how to tell time or how to express time when you're telling time, such as it is 5 o'clock, it is 6 o'clock. And then last of all, how to integrate that information into a sentence when you talk about when an activity took place by saying it took place at a certain time. And so let's take a look, first of all, at how it is that we express time as we're telling time. Almost invariably in Spanish, you'll start off with the expression son las when you're talking about the time of day or the hour. And so you'll say son las, and you already know the numbers. You can just plug the numbers into the structure I'm giving you. Son las tres, or son las cinco, son las siete, son las nueve, son las once. Now let me backtrack a little bit here. You see the expression at the bottom of the screen, de la mañana. De la mañana corresponds to AM, that is to say, in the morning. So as to avoid the possibility of any confusion, you can say son las tres de la mañana. It's 3 in the morning. Probably if you're telling time to somebody and they want to know what time it is, they're aware that it's the middle of the night. It's 3 in the morning. But nonetheless, that's how you would say it. If you're giving information about when something takes place, then, for example, at 7 o'clock, then this idea of de la mañana or de la tarde or de la noche becomes more important, as I'll explain as we go along here. So, you can say son las tres de la mañana, or just son las tres, assuming the listener understands what period of the day you're talking about. Son las 5 de la mañana, or just son las 5. Son las 7 de la mañana, or son las 7. If it's clear to the listener, you're talking about 7 a.m. and not 7 p.m. Son las 9, son las 11. Now, we come to the afternoon, and you see the expression changes. It's la tarde, de la tarde, for in the afternoon. Or in English, we'd say, of course, p.m. It's 2 p.m. Son las 2 de la tarde. Son las 4. Son las 6. And we're still saying, if necessary, de la tarde, to specify whether it's a.m. or p.m. Now, when we get to 8, you see the expression changes again. Actually, at 7 o'clock, you would say the same expression, de la noche, in the night or in the evening. Son las 8 de la noche. Son las 10 de la noche. And then we come to a radical change here. I need to explain this. So all through these expressions up to this point, we've been saying son. This is because the hours are plural. And so son, which means it's the verb ser, which means they are. They are 2 hours, they are 3 hours, etc. It sounds rather awkward, but that's in essence what you're saying. Those are plural. Hours are plural when you're saying 2, 3, 4, 5, up through 12. But when you're talking about 1 o'clock, in other words, only 1 hour of the day, or you're talking about the singular expression noon or midnight, you're not going to use the plural, third-person plural form of the verb ser. You will not say son. You'll use the third-person singular, just like if you were saying he or she. You'll use es. So if I want to say, for example, it's noon, which is in the upper left-hand corner here, I'd say es el mediodía. Es el mediodía, not son las or anything of that nature. Es el mediodía. Mediodía, by the way, is the only masculine of these 4 different times of the day requiring the singular expression es. Mediodía is the only one which is masculine, so it will be es el mediodía. Here you see es la una, refers to 1 in the afternoon. Again, the singular form of the verb ser, es. But here we have la because hour, hora, una hora, is a feminine word. So es la una. You can say es la una de la tarde for in the afternoon if you want to, optionally. Down here we have es la medianoche. Medianoche being midnight. Again, it's singular, and therefore we say es la medianoche. And then again, es la una. So these two are said the same way, 1 p.m. or 1 a.m., 1 in the afternoon or 1 in the early morning. Es la una. And therefore, to distinguish between the two, if it were necessary, we'd say es la una de la tarde, es la una de la noche. Now, what happens if you're not dealing with exactly 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, but you have a certain amount of minutes after the hour or minutes to the next hour? How do we handle that in Spanish? Well, as you can see above the little equation up here, it's really not as complicated as it looks. It's really quite simple. You simply say, in this case, son las siete, it's 7 o'clock, son las siete, then the expression or the word y, which means and, of course, son las siete y cinco. Son las siete y diez. And then son las 7 plus 25. 7 hours plus 25 minutes. Son las 7:25. Son las 7:25. And you could say de la mañana if you felt it were necessary. Okay? So, son las 7:05, las 7:10, las 7:20, las 7:25. Now, there's another expression which is important to know, and that's cuarto. Just because it's commonly used. You could say quince, and that would be acceptable to say 7:15, son las 7:15, but more commonly you're going to hear son las 7:15 for a quarter. So there's an important word to use. And as you can imagine, the next one is going to be y media for and a half. Media being a half. Son las 7:30 would be 7:30. Half past 7, in other words. Okay? Now, what do you do? This is where it becomes a little more complicated. You see how the plus sign changed to a minus sign up here. What do you do when it's a certain amount of minutes to the next hour? That is to say, the minute hand is past the 6 or the 30-minute mark, and you're going toward the next hour of the day. How is it that you express that? Well, you say the next hour of the day, even though you're not there yet. You say son las 9, and then menos, minus, and then the amount of minutes until the next hour. Son las 9 menos 10 in this case. And you have, of course, 8:50. Son las 9 menos 10. Now, this can also be said, son 10 para las 9 in Mexico. That's a way in which they'll express time. But I'm going to avoid any options at this point. Just give you the one most common way which worldwide time is expressed. So son las 9 menos 10. 9 o'clock minus 10. In other words, 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. That means, therefore, you're going to say son las 9. No, you tell me. How would you say this? Okay, hopefully if you're following me, you said son las 9 menos 5. So 9 o'clock minus 5, which means you're not quite there yet. Son las 9 menos 5. In other words, 8:55. And here we have just one more option, one more example. Let's hear you try and say this yourself. Okay, remember, if it's 9:40, it's a certain amount of minutes to that next hour. You're going to go to the next hour. Son las 10, and then you'll say minus in a certain amount of minutes. The amount of minutes it is to that next hour. So son las 10 menos 20 is it's 9:40. Even though you hear the 10, and really the hours are only 9, don't be confused by that. You're saying it just like we do in English, it's 20 minutes to 10. You go use the number 10. You go to the next hour and then indicate how many minutes to that hour. So son las 10 menos 20. And in the same light, we're going to use the term cuarto, referring to a quarter to the next hour. Son las 10 menos cuarto is 9:45. And now we switch over from telling time to indicating at what time an activity takes place. And this is going to be the most commonly used expression for us in this unit because we're talking about our daily routine. So instead of saying son las, I'm now going to say a las, indicating at a certain time. So let's say, for example, I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I would say me despierto a las 7. Probably not necessary to say de la mañana unless you're working nights. It should be pretty obvious that you're talking about 7 a.m. for waking up. So me despierto a las 7. Okay? Here's another example. Let's say at 10 o'clock at night something takes place, probably going to bed. I could say me acuesto, and now I'm not going to say son las, I'm not telling time, I'm not saying it's 10 o'clock at night, I'm saying at 10 o'clock at night. So me acuesto a las 10. If you need to say de la noche, you can, but probably not necessary. Last of all, as mentioned earlier, when you have one of these 4 time expressions, noon, midnight, or 1 o'clock in the morning or the afternoon, you're not going to use the article, the definite article las, but rather el for the masculine, which is corresponding to noon, el mediodía, or la for the feminine form, corresponding to midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or afternoon. And so if you want to say that something happens, for example, at noon, for example, you have lunch at noon, I have lunch at noon, I'd say yo tomo el almuerzo al mediodía, because mediodía is a masculine noun. Therefore, I say a plus el, which forms al mediodía. If I want to say that something takes place at midnight, for example, I come home at midnight, vuelvo a casa, I would say a la medianoche. Or something happens at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say a la una. And you could specify de la tarde or de la noche if necessary. Okay, so those are the time expressions. And now it's time for you to get into lesson 2.15 and go through the exercises on your own.